The god Thor could make lightning. Well, I've made a lightning. Does that count? Find out more right here on Gary's Stuff. Hello there, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel and welcome back if you've been here before. Today is building day on the kit of the week. That kit is the English Electric Lightning F2A in 1/72nd scale from Airfix. Now, if you already have one of these and you want to know how to put it together, this is very much the video for you. If you are thinking about getting one and want to know what's in the box, then there's a box opening video already around. And there's also another video which is more contextual one, gives a bit of the history of the aircraft and also a review of the kits that are available of it in the marketplace. Now, if you enjoy the show, or indeed any of my shows, please do remember to give them the imperial thumbs up on the like button below, because every like counts. And if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell and be notified of all my future videos as they turn out. And of course, if you'd like to offer a bit more concrete support, you can do that through Super Thanks by becoming a channel member, or by using any of my online partner programs, or like Nick Johnson did, send me a kit to make. Thanks, Nick. Let's make a move then and crack on and build this English Electric Lightning in 1/72nd scale from Airfix. So there we go. The first thing to do is to put the two halves of the ejection seat together. These are quite fiddly little things to get in. There we go. Let's get in place like that. Just add a bit of glue to hold it all together. Don't worry about these seams. They're going to be covered up with pretty much everything else. One thing that's actually quite annoying straight away, I've been at this like for 2 minutes and already it's annoyed me, which is a pity because I love this plane, is that on the back of the seat insert for the ejection seat are these enormous ejector pins. So from the moulding, so they plainly will not go in there. So these have got to come off. That's a lot of plastic to have to remove for such a small part. Not a great bit of design. And when we've got that filed down a bit, it can go into its place inside the seat, like so. Then this initiator handle can go in the top as well. And there we go, pretty decent looking ejection seat. Right, here's the cockpit area. I'm just going to put this control column in while I remember. Yes, it goes that way around. Excellent. So when that's set, I'll just paint that black. I've painted the whole thing grey, put in the decals either side for these sort of instrument side panels, and given it a wash of black wash, reasonably thin, not too massively heavy, just to bring out these details here and bits and pieces. Then I can put the ejection seat in, I can put the pilot in, and I can put the instrument panel itself in. That's the ejection seat slots in here. It sits up against the rail in the middle of the seat, let's say, like that. So the last bit to go in is the instrument panel, and that's the cockpit complete. I've done the pilot with a sort of 1950s, early 60s sort of grey-blue flying overalls. If you can do the later one, probably the sort of olive drab overalls might be better, might be more accurate, but this guy seems to fix. I'm going to do an all-over silver aircraft. The bullet fairing inside the nose cone, which is the Mac splitter. It's also the ray dome. Comes together in two halves like this, and then the front of the cone goes on there. Slightly disappointingly, you can see here the nose cone is undershot, so I'll just have to fill that in a little bit later. But before we glue all that together, we've got to put 4 grams of weights in there. I'll just use some flattened shot or something like that, and then stick it all together. I've got the intake here. Air comes in at this end and it's split into the 2 engine inlets. Now there's this bullet center body at the front. Now this contains the radar, but it also acts as a Mac cone. The shockwave forms on the front of the cone, and at high speed that sort of meets up with this inlet, and because the shockwave is going into the air inlet, that's air being slowed down, and so the air going into the front end of the engine is lower than the speed of sound, and then it will work, because jet engines can't take supersonic air in at the front end. Bullet cone is also, by the way, the housing for the nose gear. The halves of the inlet system just go together like this. The back of the inlet is this compressor fan from the lower engine. They didn't bother with one for the upper engine because it actually sits further back and it's beyond this S-bend duct, so there's no way you can see it. I'm not entirely sure I'll ever see this lower engine one from the front end, but it's there, so I might as well paint it. Now, with the exhaust nozzles, we have this really very annoying ejector pin nub right in the middle. It's a pain in the backside to cut away. Then you need to I needed anyway, to get in some, get rid of the feeder stubs using a craft knife. And then a rolled up bit of sandpaper. I mean, these are a proper pain in the backside, but they needed to be done. Once you've cleaned them up, the nozzles can go into the jet pipes here. Now you can see here there's a little tab just under the rim there. It fits into this hole here, just centers them, aligns them. And that happens. Both of them do the same thing. Again, you can see there's a little tab there. It sits in that gap between the two. They sit down nicely now, and they look fantastic from there. Just glue those in. Then we can assemble the exhaust. The pipes here go onto this part here, which is like the turbine, exit turbines of the jets. Then you've got the afterburner bodies in there, and then that sits on the top. Just make sure you've got it the right way round, of course. This would be a good point for this to be keyed, so you can only put it in one way round. But see this narrow part, that's the top, and the top is where you can see this sort of wedge comes this way. So this is the shorter one here, is at the top. This longer exposed pipe here is at the bottom. Make sure they're that way around, then glue them up. And the final thing to do before the two fuselage hulls together, you put the cockpit on top of the air inlet, like so. So as a final check on alignment, this bit at the back of the intake sits on this piece here, this tab. The back of the cockpit tub sits on this kinked tab here. The very top of the back of the cockpit tub, you can see here, actually sits on top of the fuselage here, fills in there. And the front of the fuselage piece fits behind the line of this ring here. Okay, it won't sit straight away, we'll have to tape it or clamp it to get it to sit properly. But if those are all in the right place, then so's this assembly, and you can glue it in. And at the back of the aircraft, this piece simply has to fit up against the tab, like so. It's nice and snug against that. And then the two halves of the fuselage can be connected. And just a little bit of taping here and there, and it's ready to be glued up. The next thing is on the front here, we have this fuel bay, fuel tank. We need to fit the front of the fuel tank in. This might take a bit of convincing. While the bodywork is finally setting, I'm going to fix the wings together. They come in two halves as usual. Just stick together like this, tape them up, glue them up, job's done. In each wing we put the flaps. These will need to go right in because of the angle that they're made at. You need to push them right in before they'll slot into the wing. You can't sort of get it past this way. You can see it sort of cants down this. It's got to be right up against the wing before it will click into place. But click into place it does, and we can do that on the other wing as well. When the flaps have set on the wings, you can put the wings onto the fuselage. The tailplanes can go in as well, these all flying tailplanes. Slot in like so. At the front of the aircraft on the nose up here is the gun port. There's one on each side for the 30mm cannon that fits in here. And then also there's the coaming for the instrument panel that kind of goes in around about here as well. Under the tail here I can fix the arrestor hook, and this was to prevent runaway overruns, not for landing on aircraft carriers. But there's a part missing here, a fairing over it that's missing, but I'll just make up that with some putty. The air brakes can go in. I'm having them closed. There are rams there, so you can have them open as well if you want. I've made a kind of a crude little filler in here, sanded it and whatever down. I'll just clean it up a little bit more a bit later. When that's done, the fins can go into the side like so, one on each side. Then we can slot on the canopy, the windshield and the canopy, the windshield. I've masked these off with a set that came with it, obviously. So these can go on, and we'll see the pilot later on. So what I've done is I've sprayed the spine and the tail in blue, just used Humbrol number 25, medium blue, matte blue. That's going to be glossed up later, of course, with some. I've put one layer of gloss varnish on because I wanted to bind it in while I taped it up. Now the rest of the plane, I'm going to spray in black primer first and then use metal colour on top to give the metal finish. Apart from around the cockpit, of course, because that stayed black. But everywhere else, metal finish. And then I'll start using different metal tones, maybe, if I can. I'll see how we go with that. Okay, so what I've done so far then is sprayed the top, the fin with blue first on normal primer, and black around here, painted this black around here. Masked that out, sprayed the whole thing with a black primer, aluminium on top, and then what I've done is I've just touched in a few panels with slightly darker, like I've got a duraluminium Dural, which is like a darker kind of aluminium. And then I mixed the two together to get this sort of medium grade aluminium colour. I've put some gunmetal around the gun barrels as well. It just, I mean, you can look at a drawing of the Lightning and get which panels are darker and lighter and stuff like that. You can also mix a little bit of white in to get like a really dull down, or grey even. Get some dull down colour as well. But this will do me for the moment. It's just an example, really, a test, really, of the technology in a way. So yeah, that I think it looks pretty good. You can highlight different panels and stuff like that, even with a bare metal finish. So what I need to do now is put on all the decals, and then I can get on with all the appendages underneath. Now for the fast streak missiles, I've already painted the bodies. They come in two halves, but with two extra fins to make the whole sort of cruciform fin thing. Paint them white, put the decals on, and now I'm just going to put in to the top the clear seeker heads. There we go, like that. The undercarriage legs go in, like so. As this strut goes in here, like so. There's a slot at the bottom. Well, it's actually the top underside of the top of the wing in there. It fits in there, and then it fits into the back of the bay here. Then the gear leg itself fits into a slot here. And this arm fits onto here, and this arm at the bottom fits onto there, so kind of like that. Nose wheel fits in very, very simply, just like so. The wheels go on like this. Now the wheels have got little tabs, so they sit at exactly the right angle. The thing is, the main gear legs here are supposed to be canted forward at an angle of about 7 degrees, or best of luck doing that. But they're canted forward slightly, and the weighting on the wheels is makes allowance for that. So instead of being completely, they're sort of slightly backwards, the flat spot slightly backwards. Do you know, if you don't get it exactly right, it's not an issue, because you're not going to get everything right. 7-degree backwards. Yeah, if you can measure that and be bothered with it, that's great. The flat spot isn't that heavy a flat spot anyway, because these wheels were pumped up really, really high pressures. They're very thin, very narrow, but like insanely high pressure. So it didn't actually have all that much give in them anyway. So don't worry about it. But if you can try and get it right, that's grand. If not, really don't sweat it over too much of it. Unless you're going into a competition, in which case they're going to measure whether they're 7 degrees forward. The gear doors are a thing on this. There's the inner door here, first of all. The door has this little thing which is sort of slips closed when you take the gear up, but it's two little. It sits at 90 degrees normally, so there's a couple of little tabs here. They sit on the side of the door like that. I'd let that dry before you try putting this onto the gear leg. Now this larger door clips into here on the side. And we go like that. That should ideally be sort of over about 10 degrees, but again, if you want to make sure absolutely right, then measure it or whatever, but otherwise it sort of slightly outwards is fine. It's up to you. It's your kit. You do as much accuracy and detail as you want. Me, I'm happy for it just to be sort of slightly outwards. There's a tab on the side here and a little slot on the inside door of the door, rather. It is the inside door as well. And the one just sits on the other, like so. Now do the same for the other wing. And nose gear doors, likewise, there's a couple that go at the front here that are opened. And there's a couple of little tabs they sit into here. There's one on this side as well. And there's a door that sits on the back of the leg, like so. I'm going to put together the missile rails now. You can see on the rail there's a couple of mounting points, and these need to be at the front, this end, and then you can see that the mount has got like a tail end, so that tail piece goes to the longer end of the rail, if you see what I mean. Then there's a couple of just little tabs that they sit into. Now these are going to be really delicate, so I think we will leave those for a long time. Then we've got our 5-streak missile here that we made earlier, and we just put the slots of the pylon onto the slots, into the slots on the missile. When they're all dry, they can go onto the aircraft. Now these are handed, so they need to go on the right side because they've got a little bevel to allow for the bevel of the fuselage at that point. So you do need to make sure the right one goes on the right side. The thing to go on is the probe at the nose, and then the aircraft is complete. So there it is, the English Electric Lightning F2A in 1/72nd scale from Airfix. Did I enjoy making the kit? Yes, absolutely I did. I love a Lightning. I found the kit reasonably easy to get done. I enjoyed doing the pilot. There's not that many issues here. Some of the fit could be a little bit better maybe, but generally speaking it's pretty good. It's an enjoyable kit to make of a very, very, very wonderful aeroplane. I'm happy with the finish. It's just that sort of slightly matte sort of aluminium finish. Didn't want it too shiny. Love the dark blue spine and tail. The decals are nice and bright, good colour. Generally speaking, all round it makes a really, really nice kit of a very, very, very lovely aeroplane. I'm so glad I made this. So there it is. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I've adored Lightnings. I used to draw them all the time. I used to caricature them. I used to go and see them at air shows making the most amazingly wonderful noise. It's a visceral plane. It looks mean. It looks fast, and it is. Even today, most planes would have a trouble keeping up with it, getting to altitude. Flown by a good pilot, that thing will still climb like a homesick angel. It really is a beautiful, beautiful, powerful aeroplane. With a few tweaks, it could have been an absolute world beater, but hey, that's history. That's the way things go. But it's still a lovely kit of a lovely plane, so I'm really pleased I made it. If you enjoy the show, and I hope you do, please do remember Imperial thumbs up on the like button below because every like counts. And if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and you'll be notified of all my future videos as they turn up on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you again very soon. Take care now, and goodbye.